Welcome to another G4 Guitar Teacher Hangout. My name is David Hart, and today we're going to follow our standard format and ask questions, solve some problems, do some brainstorming, and see what we can come up with. I will begin with Adam Wines, who's located in Maryland in the US. Adam, what would you like to talk about today?
I just want to observe, and if I can help, I'll help out anyway.
Okay, cool. So you're just going to, hang around and see if you've got anything to add, let us know. For those who aren't familiar, Adam's been with G4 for about 2 years. He's doing extremely well. He's sort of edging his way up into the high numbers, he's got his eyes set on that 100 students. So he's got lots of good advice to offer because he's pretty well been through most of the challenges that you face getting from 0 to 100. And so Adam, anything? I'm going to sort of bring you in at time to time to add comments.
Sure.
I'll go to Monty. Monty, what would you like to touch on today?
Oh, nothing in particular.
Just want to listen in, see what.
Yeah. If I think of something, I'll throw it in.
Okay, cool, excellent. Alrighty, and I'll just go to Chris. Chris, anything that you want to talk about in particular?
I have a few small things, nothing crazy. Let's see. One thing that comes to mind is I feel like I'm not being consistent with the 2-for-1 offer that we've talked about before, where if a student refers another student, then you give them a certificate to have a free 5-week intro, right?
Yep.
And they would either use it for themselves or just give it to someone else as a gift, I suppose, or I guess split it with someone, however they want to use it. So I had a recent example where a really good student of mine, they brought their sibling in. So the younger brother is now starting, actually tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So would I just send them the link for the 5-week intro and just tell them you don't have to pay it then, or like how would that? What's the best way of handling that? I seem like I'm not being consistent with it,
Okay, cool. Chris, what I'll do is just because I know you haven't been to one of these new Hangouts, but basically what we're doing, the format is that I'll ask you what you're going to talk about at the beginning, and that way when people watch back this video, they'll know what topics we're going to cover. And then, so I'll come back to you in a minute, and we'll go through that.
Perfect.
Excellent. So, Joachim, what would you like to talk about today?
It was one specifically. It was around there's adult students, and then they say they can't make it, have to work, and then I said I'd be there next week. And then the next week comes, they can't make it again. And I said, this time doesn't work for you. Let's make another time. And say, no, this is fine. This is good. And then next thing, cancel lessons.
Okay. So you're talking about busy adult students who kind of start off with good intentions, but then they give you lots of excuses for why they're not available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And just that they don't want to change the time.
Okay. All right. Busy adults, not flexible. Okay. Excellent. All right. And what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to add to this conversation, is a little bit about the G4 guitar method and the actual printouts and the sheets and the role of those sheets. Because I think from the conversations that are going on in Facebook, I think there's a bit too much emphasis on the sheets themselves, as if they are the be-all and end-all of your teaching. The sheets are I want to kind of bring it into perspective as to how I used them and what the purpose of those sheets was for me. And so hopefully that'll give you guys some perspective on your own teaching, because it really is the 80% is off the sheet. That's where your students are going to really excel, where you're going to keep your students, build the connections and so forth. And also it'll free you up if you're too reliant on the sheets themselves. Then you won't have time. And I'll put it very quickly just so you can see what I'm going to talk about. But think about it as the performer the performer who reads sheet music, which is great, which is important. Someone in an orchestra, say, and they're reading sheets. They're sitting there, and their whole attention is on the music, and they're reading through the music, and that has a purpose and a place. Whereas the performer who's got to perform for the audience and connect with the audience can't be sitting watching a piece of music. And so that's what we want to do, is we want to be the performer. We don't want to be focused on the sheet all the time. What we want to do is be there for our students. So the sheet is really not, we don't even have to look at it. We know exactly what's on it. The notes are very simple, and it's just a way of keeping us aware of the things that we need to do. So I'll get to that. So I'll start with Chris. Chris, so the 2-for-1 offer, so just run over that again. So what you're basically saying is that you want to know how to present it. Maybe just if you ask the question again in your own words.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How to present it, because yeah, like would it only apply for maybe friends of theirs, or if they bring family members, then they get a free month. So if they keep. So in effect, I guess if they keep bringing a new, referring a new student, they would just continually get free lessons then, right? Which I would have no problem with. I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding that's what we're doing, right?
Okay. So first of all, I'll say the 2-for-1 thing was something that I never did. It's what is called a form of manipulation, and manipulation could sound bad, but it doesn't have to be bad. But generally, if you read the book, someone like Simon Sinek can read his book called The Power of Why. Basically, you've got to know your business. The premise to his book is knowing why you're in business. What are you doing? Why do you do what you do? When you have a strong enough why, the rest of it tends to take care of itself. So it could be your why is because you want to provide. You want a lifestyle where you can spend more time with your family, be at home with your kids, and integrate your income so you're earning and being part of the community, connecting with people wanting to learn music, learning guitar, because that's something that you enjoy doing. So if I look at my situation, my early years were in retail and sales, and if I went from that, the obvious path to go if you want to make lots of money is to go into real estate or car sales or something where there's big commissions and lots of the growth is there, especially in Sydney these days. Sydney in Australia is, the guys from Sydney would know, is the most expensive place in Australia to buy real estate. It's had a huge growth, even though we had all this sort of collapse of real estate around the world. Sydney boomed. I chose teaching guitar, and that's because of my why. My why is that I'm much more connected to music and guitar and teaching, and that's what I wanted to do. I found even when I was selling, I was more teaching than selling, and the difference, I guess, is that teaching is where you're trying to educate someone into understanding a concept, an idea, whereas the selling idea is that you're simply trying to get them to pay for whatever it is. So you're selling the benefits, so to speak. And so we do a bit of both in what we do. So to come back to the 2-for-1 offer, you've got to ask yourself, does it fit in with what you're trying to do, with your why? Rather than blindly pushing out promotions, you've got to, everything has to feel genuine to you, and it has to feel right. Sometimes you've got to take risks, you've got to step out of your comfort zone, you've got to test things. This is not playing it safe. This is what I'm talking about here is understanding what your concept behind it is. So if you've got a student who is recommending, and the only reason this 2-for-1 came up is we just talk about different marketing ideas when people put something forward. I'm not going to just knock it back and say, hey, I don't believe in it. I'll say, well, try it and see how you go. But in the case of if you're going to use the 2-for-1 offer, what you really want to do is just ask yourself the question of, how do I want it to work? Do I want to give this to just anybody who signs up? Do I want to give it to somebody just when they sign up? Is it a limited offer? Is it something that I will give to students after a certain period of time? So it's really I don't have any rules on it. I don't have even any recommendations on it because I didn't do it. I used to get referrals from students because they wanted to refer students, but I also did things to help that, to make it easy for them. to refer students, and that's another thing, is that sometimes people do want to refer people to you, but you also have to make it easy for them, so that they're not doing all the work, so to speak. All right. So,
Right.
yeah. Adam, have you ever done a 2-for-1?
No, never.
Never. Okay. So, I think you're very much an experimental ground there, Chris, and that's probably where a bit of your wondering is coming from. Is how do we do this? Has anyone here done a 2-for-1 offer?
I've done the offer, but no one's ever taken me up on it.
Okay, all right. So you've offered the 2-for-1, but nobody's actually come forth and done it.
Yeah, I put it on my flyers. Adam, have you ever even tried it?
No.
No. Okay. So I've tried it. On my flyers and some of my ads, and no one's ever taken me up on it. So, I guess nobody has brothers or sisters or friends. As soon as somebody does it, I will deliver in full. So.
And what's funny too is I think people have brought referrals to me not because of the offer, but just because they felt like bringing a referral. I don't think it was. I sense that wasn't the cause of them bringing new people. It was just because they ran into someone that wanted to learn guitar.
Yeah. I don't think we're in. I think the 2-for-1 works in certain businesses. I think in restaurants, 2 meals for the price of 1. It works really well. It's a great thing to do for restaurants because they want to give people a sample of their food. I think in our case, it's more going to be, people are going to refer and recommend their friends, not for a free 2-for-1. They're going to say, hey, I've got this free voucher, come and learn guitar, you really should do it. And the other thing is, I don't want to learn guitar, why would I want to learn guitar? Whereas, and they're not going to have that kind of friend who's sort of on the edge of, maybe I want to learn, I'm not sure. And then they go, well, I got a 2-for-1 offer, why don't you? The odds of that are fairly slim as well. I think in most cases, the referrals are going to be from students who have a friend who wants to learn, and you make it easy for them. And I do make that point, making it easy for them. So let me just sort of elaborate on what I mean by making it easy for them. When I talk to students, especially parents, and that, one of the things that I would often say is, do you have any friends who want to learn guitar? Or do you have any friends who play guitar, is generally my opening line. And then they say, oh, yes, no, maybe. No, it doesn't really matter what they say. If they say, yes, I have a friend, then I inquire a little bit more about that friend, and then I make the point that it's really good if you guys can do some things together, have a bit of a jam, teach each other what you know, because having a friend is one of the things that makes all the difference, and I will tell parents that, is when we have a friend, there's the Marcus Buckingham book that you might want to check out sometime. Just look him up, Marcus Buckingham, and his book is called First Break All the Rules, and it is a business book. It's not about teaching guitar, but what he worked for the Gallup poll. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. They do all the big polling and so forth, and so he originally worked for them. He had all this data and information on statistics and polling of people, and basically what they did was focus on the business side of things, which is mostly what Gallup poll do anyway, but looking at what keeps people, they were looking at employees, which is the same as a student. Think of an employee like a student. They join an organization, there's incentives to stay there or not stay there, and so there's a lot of parallels you can draw. But what they found out is one of the key things that keeps people in a job is not the money. What's more important than the money is whether or not they have a friend at their work. So if someone feels that they've got a friend where they work, they're more likely to stay in that job, even if they're not happy with the pay, even if they're not happy with some of the conditions. If they have a friend, then they're going to stick it out. And I know that. I've been there. I've been in a job just back in my teens and early 20s when I had a few jobs, and I remember sticking to the job because I had a mate, I had at least one mate that I really enjoyed working with. The money wasn't great, and I was actually teaching guitar, and I was working for this organisation in Sydney where I had a couple of very good friends there, and I didn't even need to work there anymore. I was earning plenty of money teaching, but I loved going and hanging out with these guys, so I stayed in the job. So with with your students is the same. If they have a friend, you can tell this to parents, if they have a friend that they're learning guitar with, they're more likely to stick with guitar. Because if you ever think about, I don't know, with you guys, I know for me personally, my best mate who still, we spent a lot of time, he bought me that guitar that's over there, which is, like a $5,000 guitar, as a gift. We're the best of mates, and we have been since we were 12, 13. And he was the guy that kept me going the whole time. He was already playing guitar, but it was his friendship that kept me going at it. And this is the thing that will often work with you and your students. If they don't have a friend, then that's where the grouping comes in, where you try and find them a friend, you try and make a friend with them and build those connections. If you are that friend in the beginning, that's great, but ideally you want to help them find someone their own age, or find some friends their own age. So once you start doing that and you're thinking that mindset that each of your students should have a friend that they're learning with, someone that they're doing it with, that's when you're going to build stronger connections. You're going to get more referrals. Because if you think about each one bringing another friend, then it's just exponential growth from there on. Yeah. All right.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to Joachim's question here, and that is busy adults and them not being flexible. So what I'm going to do is, rather than sort of throwing all my advice up, because I've spoken on this topic many times, I'm just going to go around to you guys and see what you think, whether you are having this same problem, how you solve the problem, etc. So I'll just start with Adam. Adam, what would your comments, or where do you stand on this?
Joachim was right to be like, it looks like this time isn't working. Let's find you another time. And then the adult, said, no, this is fine. And then they left. So they either left for two reasons. They either left because they were generally just too busy, in which case you just market more to get another student, or they didn't like the lessons for some reason and they left and just didn't want to confront you on why they didn't like the lessons. So it's a 50-50 chance either way. But either way, you end up just having to market to get a new student, and then just try to learn from the mistakes, if any mistakes happen.
Yeah, I'd agree in the sense that it's usually in the beginning. Those problems happen from the very first phone call, very first lesson. And if you think of the intro really sometimes as a trial period, there are going to be students who from that phone call, this guy's a 20% chance of actually working out, just from the tone, all the kind of things they said. So don't beat yourself up if that student doesn't enroll. Just know that the intro, and that's why I call it an intro, and that's why in my mind an intro, really when I started doing them, was about an interview. I was there to see whether or not you were going to be a student who was going to work out and succeed. And so so allow yourself that intro. But as you get better at it, and especially in the sales call and phone call, then what you start to do is that you can change the way people are approaching their way of doing guitar. So for instance, Joachim, let's just do this for a second. If I'm a new adult student inquiring about guitar lessons, let's just role play this for a minute. I just want to see how you respond and what you say. So I say to you, oh, look, I've got one of your flyers and just want to find out a little bit more about these lessons. Could you just give me a little bit more information, please?
Okay. So what was your name? Sorry.
My name's David.
David. Okay, nice to meet you. I'm Joachim.
Joachim. Yep.
So, have you played guitar before?
Not really. I've had a guitar for a little while, but haven't really played much.
Oh, okay. Okay. What music interests you?
Look, I'm sort of, I like the classics, the 60s, 70s, anything from Zeppelin to the Beatles to Journey, those kind of bands.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so David, why don't you tell me a bit more about what are you trying to do, and then I can see how I can help you with that.
Okay. Well, I just want to learn guitar. Really, I'm pretty much a beginner, so yeah, just want to go from the beginning.
Okay, great. Would you like me to tell you more about the course?
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit, and and just say, let's just get to the point where I've sort of said, all right, I'll give it a go. What happens next?
Oh well, I think just to because this is not someone that's in the group lessons.
Okay, no, this is me enrolling on the phone. This is right
Oh,
from the
right.
beginning.
But I mean, the one I was talking about is someone that's been in group lessons for a while.
Okay, all right. So all right. So with this particular student, where did the problem start? At what week did you see? What week did they start saying I can't do this time?
Let's see.
How many lessons had they had? Is this like a one-off isolated problem, or is this something that's reoccurring?
With this one, or
Yeah, with any, like, are you having a problem with lots of adults, or is this just a one-off situation?
it's just something that it happens from time to time again and again. So I just trying to figure out like what's the solution to it.
So it's a reoccurring problem. You're finding it with,
Yeah.
you're getting it again and again with adults. Okay. So
Yeah,
if it's a reoccurring problem, then yeah, you need to address it. If it's a one-off, and that's really what I'm saying, if it's a one-off, then you don't have a problem, because you're always going to get one-offs. You're always going to get somebody. It's a bit like, you know, if you have a student who, you know, turns up with a broken arm, what do I do? Well, most students don't turn up with broken arms.
Well,
You don't really need to focus too much on what to do in that situation.
I mean, this is the third week he said he couldn't come because of work.
Okay, so, but my question is this something that lots of adult students are doing? They're saying bring up work?
No, it's like, you know, once in a while, but I find, you know, maybe 5% does it of adults.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not really a problem for you. I wouldn't worry about it. I would just, but if you want to work this out, because remember, as you grow, these problems really do shrink, because you get better. They understand the program more. Think about it like this: if you interviewed the average person who went into McDonald's, most of them are probably not going to say, this is the greatest hamburger I've ever eaten in my life. This is just the perfect burger. I love it. Some might. There's probably some crazy McDonald's fans that love their food. But most people are going to go, it's all right. You know, it's I get what I pay for. It's not expensive. The place is reasonably clean. I didn't have to wait too long. So what they're educated McDonald's customers. And that's really, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. It's once your customers are educated on who you are and what you do, what you find is there's less and less of these problems because people come in knowing what the situation is. So if you've got students who are, you know, for instance, asking for lots of makeups, that generally means that they're not educated on your business or on the way that we operate. And people who are educated will go, you know, I understand this is not the greatest burger in the world, but hey, it only cost me a few bucks, so I'm happy to live with it. It's not that I'm not comparing us to McDonald's in any sense of the word. The quality of what we do is, to me, is far better than anything that, you know, it's far better than the average. Let's put it that way. I'm sure there are some great teachers out there. I'm not saying we're better than everybody, but what we are is, for what we do, we're extremely good at what we do, and that's the collectiveness of who we are and what we do. So, but what I am comparing it to is the fact that people become educated into the way your business operates. They know, for instance, that in order for us to keep a reasonable price on our high standard, high quality lessons, then we can't be doing makeups. If we were charging, you know, every student $40 a lesson, maybe there's some room for makeups there. Maybe there's a buffer, and that's really what any company does. Most companies that give guarantees of different types, like a guarantee if you don't make your appointment. Like if you think about doctors, dentists, I don't know how it is in the US and in Australia, the UK, but in Australia, what happens here is that if you make a dental appointment or a doctor's appointment, you don't make it, you generally don't pay. They only charge you when you actually come to the appointment. They're not happy about it, and they'll say, look, you need to stick to your appointment. But at the same time, most doctors get reimbursed by government here because we have what's called Medicare, and they also have what they charge really allows. They've built it in. They know that 10% of people aren't going to turn up to their appointments. So there's that kind of, restaurants do it as well. They have a kind of a built-in thing of, if you don't turn up to your booking, then they're not going to be too happy about it. And if you try and book again next week, they might not accept your booking. But what restaurants do is they take people in off the street. They know there's a certain amount of street customers and just turn up, so they kind of balance it out. But we're not like that. We're not just accepting people in off the street at any time for a guitar lesson. And what we're doing is maintaining a standard by not having this make-up policy. So in the case of your student who's not turning up in cancel 3 times, I'd be very upfront with that student and just say, look, Jack, John, Peter, whatever his name is, it's not going to work if you can't come every week. I understand you've got a very busy work schedule, but as we teach in groups here, everything runs in a group. If you miss even 1 week, you're going to fall behind the pace of the group. If you miss 2 weeks, that really starts to affect you, but it also affects the group. And when you come in, you're going to be kind of confused and lost as to where we are and what we're doing. So it's really important that you can come at that same time every week. Is it going to work for you? If he says, well, not really, my work is really important, that's number one for me, I can't manage this, then I would suggest to him, okay, look, wait until your work clears up a bit or things change, and then come back and see me. So that shows that you're very genuine about what you're doing, what you're teaching. He will leave on good terms. He will realize that you weren't, it wasn't about money. You didn't talk about, hey, I'm missing out here. And it wasn't about trying to negotiate makeups or anything. It was simply about the fact that he wasn't able to be consistent, which shows you as a good coach, a good teacher, and a good operation. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. It doesn't sound like a big problem for you anyway, but, if that's... I would look more for where your biggest problems are. What are the things that affect you? And also, something to keep in mind generally with your schools and your teaching is look for your best people, look for your best students, and look for what they need. Nurture your best students. Don't get too hung up on your worst students. And I don't mean to, sort of identify certain types of students here, but that it's a reality that many people in business end up, I'm not just talking teaching, but they end up spending way too much time on their bad customers and neglecting their good customers as a result. You only have a certain amount of time, energy, and resources available to you, and you want to make those available for your best people. And that's you guys, no offense to those who don't turn up to these Hangouts, but you guys are the best in my book because you're here, you're eager to learn, you want to know more. So this is where I'm spending my time. I'm not going to go chasing that G4 teacher who I never hear from, who really is not participating at the level that you guys are. So that's why I want to provide more for you to give you help you guys get to that thing. And that's exactly what's happening. You guys are growing faster. The more I hear from you guys, or the more that we sort of work together, the more I focus on the best G4 teachers, then the better you guys do, which in the end means the better we do as a whole. Right? So definitely focus on your best. Does anyone want to add anything at this point? We all good? Okay, I'll just go to Michael.
Quiet bunch tonight, huh?
Oh, sorry, Monty, you go.
Quiet bunch.
Quiet bunch, yes, that's good. They're all listening.
Yes, listening intently. Don't wake the baby.
Don't wake the baby, That's if you hear any kids in the background, it's school holidays here, and my daughter's got a friend here, so.
I thought I did hear somebody. Very nice.
Yes, they're doing their best to keep quiet, but they are 6-year-olds, so you can't expect too much.
Yeah, group lesson.
Group lesson, that's it. The group lesson.
Yeah, have Thea entertain and get you another student there.
That's it. That's it. I get asked a lot, actually. The mothers, you teach guitar?
Yeah.
No, I used to, but no more.
Pull you out of retirement.
They want to pull me out of retirement. That's right. It's tempting sometimes because some of the kids are really good, and I know that they're really keen to learn guitar. It's just really nice whenever you see a kid who wants to learn, the temptation to want to help them is very strong. very strongly.
That's right.
My
It's in your
natural
blood.
instinct is I want to help.
That's right.
Michael, did you want to throw in something? Did you want to ask a question?
Actually, I was just wondering. There's been a lot more Hangouts recently, and every time you upload the Hangout, I put it on my watch later list on YouTube, and that list is growing quite a bit. So I'm just wondering, how important is it that I sort of try and keep up with the Hangouts, or is that I just try and watch the ones that I attend or whatever, and because I do find them really helpful. Like I have been watching them sort of maybe 2 a week, but the list is growing a bit faster than I can watch them. And if it is important that we catch them, is there some way we can kind of summarize them or something? Just I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's important to watch them all, in any hurry. Just as you can, as you get the time. And you're going to hear some topics repeated, of course, but a lot of the things that do get talked about in the Hangouts, even if they are repeated, I find you need to hear them again. You need to keep hearing those things again. I read books all the time, and the messages, 90% of the book I know the messages, I know what they're talking about, but hearing them say it again is sometimes, yes, I've forgotten that, I've let that go. So I think it's valuable to listen to them as you can, but it's not necessary for you to have to listen to every single Hangout. Just as you find the time. That's what I would say. Yeah. There are going to be times, like for instance, I'll be out of action for a week. I'm going down to Sydney. I'll be going to see Joachim in Paddington, and I'll be doing some other things there. I'll be there for a seminar, which will be 2 full days of internet marketing, what they call advanced internet marketing course, which I'll be doing. So there'll be no Hangouts in that week, which is next week, I think. I'll be here the Monday and the Wednesday, but after that, so I'll miss a week there. So there'll be, and of course there'll be times when this won't happen as well. As you know, I go through a series where we'll do a bunch of Hangouts, and I find that everybody's sort of got plenty of information, and then we'll stop it for a while, and then we'll start again. Yeah. So that way you can sort of go through the old ones. We're up to, this is number 71, so there's plenty of stuff to review at any time as well. And I'm always happy. There are times when I sort of bounce where we have these Hangouts where it's just let's do it, and maybe do this for another month or two. And then what I'll do is I'll stop them and I'll just have Hangouts based on questions and topics, so specific topics where you might say, can we have a Hangout on this? I'll go, great, let's do it. And so, yeah, I like to keep it interesting and keep it sort of mixing it around, because I want to I don't want it to get boring or stale and feel like we're sort of forcing things. I want to go through different stages, different periods, and try different things. Yeah. Cool. All right, cool. Good question. All right, so I'm going to go on to the topic of G4 guitar method and its role and how I see its role. And I know everyone will have their own take on things, and this is not about you having to do exactly what I did. It's just what worked for me and worked extremely well for me. And there are some of the secrets to my own success are hidden in the way that I did things. Some of I've found that this whole setup of the G4 network, which is a few years now, has been a real learning experience for me in trying to understand what it was that worked so well for me, and to get that across to you guys, because sometimes there are things that I wasn't aware of that were just happening. But due to my years of experience, if you read any of Malcolm Gladwell's material, his book like Outliers and Blink and those kind of books, he talks about how, I'll give a quick example. He talks about the fire chief who went into the fire. Then I think this was what was in the US somewhere, but basically he was in this situation where he suddenly told all his guys to get out, everybody out, and they all rushed out. And then just as they rushed out, the whole floor collapsed. and what had happened was there was a fire under the floor, but you wouldn't have known it. But he knew it. He knew something wasn't right, but he didn't. He couldn't put his finger on it. He just knew something wasn't right, and he said everybody out. And it was his experience that helped him to sense that. And as Malcolm Gladwell goes on to talk about, is that it wasn't just him being psychic or having some kind of premonition that the floor was going to collapse. It's that his experience was able to pick up on the subtleties of the situation that less experienced people can pick up on. And that applies the same in teaching. And that's where, if I come in and, as I'm going to with Joachim, and watch some of his classes operating, I can instinctively see the things that are missing and the things that aren't being done. And this doesn't mean that the teachers there or Joachim are doing purposely doing things wrong or inadequate. They just don't have the experience. They're not aware of those things. So this has been really a kind of a system of undoing my own experience and looking at, okay, what did I do and why did I do it? And sometimes I don't even know why. I just know that this is the way it should be done. So the conversation in Facebook recently about the G4 method and about we should have this and that and all these details on the actual sheets, although the logic and it makes sense, I understand instinctively that these things aren't necessary. They're overkill, and in many cases it comes from the level of experience that the teacher's at. The teacher is 1, 2, 5, 10 years experience, whatever level that they're at. They have a certain way of seeing things and doing things, or they come to certain conclusions, but those conclusions start to drift over time. And you can see that right across the board. If you look, for those of you who have got 10 years teaching experience here, you will have certain instincts that when you watch a teacher who's only been going for a year or two, that you can see where they're at. You can see the stage of maturity. It's like when you look at kids, you can see the age they're at. You can see what point they're at. It's the same with your students. You can see what stage they're at with their learning. They come in and they just want to learn songs and riffs, and you know that we've got to get the fundamentals down. We've got to get these basic skills down before we start diving into all those things you want to do. So what I'm trying to do is convey what my 25 years of actual teaching experience taught me, and try and get that across in a way, even though I don't always have the words, and it's sometimes just to trust me that there are certain ways to do things. So let me try and break it down with the role of the sheets. The sheets and the whole starter kit is about giving students something when they first come to their intro. By the intro, the only things that I was really using out of that folder were the practice log and the checklist, and maybe their ultimate song list. They were really the only 3 things that I cared about. Their schedule should already be set up. They should understand the basic skills and the important points. And when I'm going through my intro lessons and I'm introducing something, I don't want to give them too much. I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want to have them to think, wow, this is a very heavy instruction manual here. People just don't operate that way. Most people want to see 3 points, 3, maybe 4 points, and that's it, and then they're done. Okay, give me 3 things to think about, I can absorb that. And my whole way was to get people learning in the moment, so that right there and then they would be able to do something and walk away with it. And they talk about in teaching and most things early wins, and so it's better to get them to do something very simple successfully, to at least to execute it through that lesson, and then to go home and practice that. But if you're overwhelming them with lots of ideas and you're talking about why this is that, and getting to talk about modes and triads and anything that's a concept that they're just going to go, what? Then they become overwhelmed. And it's a classic thing of teachers, and I'm not talking just beginner teachers, a lot of teachers get in the habit of doing it for years, and that's where they feel that they want to give their students lots of information, lots of stuff, because they think, I want to give them value. So they turn up, I want to give them a whole stack of things. I want to give them 5 songs, a couple of riffs, scales, the whole history of music, the guitar theory, all this stuff, bang, bang, here you go. And so they walk out going, wow, for $99, that was a bargain. But that's not how people think. They walk out going, my God, I've got so much information here. Hey, I don't need any more lessons. It's going to take me 10 years just to get through what you've given me. or I just totally feel overwhelmed. I didn't realize guitar was so full on. I thought this was something just simple, and so we need to keep them thinking it's simple, and gradually ease them into this. And like I said, I just know this. I know that you're much more likely to scare off a student by giving them too much than to have a student who feels ripped off because you didn't give them enough. Okay, so the purpose of the sheets, I'll come back to this and say it once more, the purpose of the sheets is really just a guide and a few points on each skill to remember. It's not about a step-by-step instruction of everything that they need to do.
So when you say sheets, is this the practice sheet? Daily practice sheet?
Skill sheet, yeah, like say the picking skill sheet there. There are
okay,
some other
so
sheets there which obviously...
skill, all 7 skills, all the sheets, is that what you... Okay.
Yeah, right. So for instance, you got the chord one, which gives you, some points on the chords, and then you got the arpeggio one, give you a few points on arpeggios, a few points on rhythm. So those sheets. There are also a few exercises on some of those, just kind of as an introduction, but the actual sheets that go with those are where the students are going to mainly refer to pretty much after the intro. So for instance, there's a scales sheet which covers level 1 scales, and so after they've done the intro, by the end of the intro, they should understand what a scale is, and they should be aware of the points, the main points. Putting your thumb behind the neck, putting your finger close to the fret, playing on the tips. They're the main things that they need to know. And as a you even look at, doesn't matter what level coach, somebody who is, say for you guys in the US who's a baseball coach, you're talking these baseball players who have been playing the games since they were knee high to a grasshopper, and you got these coaches who may not have even been as good as they were, not as successful in their careers, whatever, but what they do is they sit there and they watch the player and they go, you're slightly angling this way. And this is after years and years and years of doing this, right? Hitting balls, pitching, whatever they do. They keep refining their game. They keep looking for ways to improve their game, because nobody is perfect. And the thing that you as the coach, if you've got a different perspective, any of you guys should even be able to look at Satriani and someone of that caliber and be able to give him some advice. And if you can't, you need to think about why you can't, because he can't see himself from his perspective. I'm not talking about you giving him advice on how to write music or compose or whatever. You can if you want, that's your thing. But I'm just talking about generally looking at any player and looking at some area that they can improve on. It might not even be their playing, it might be their schedule, it might be the way that they run. If they come to you for advice and they pay you for advice, what are you going to tell them? How are you going to give them something? And that's the difference between a coach and just someone who plays, so to speak, a player and a coach. A coach knows how to bring out the best in someone, no matter where they're at, what their level is. And if you look at most business coaches, most guys who are, most sports coaches, most of these guys, and I'm really talking the majority, have not necessarily reached the same levels as the people they're coaching. But they understand the principles of what needs to be done to achieve that, because the act of doing is sometimes different to the act of coaching. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be good guitar players, we certainly should, but we shouldn't think that that's what makes a great coach or a great teacher. What makes a great teacher is someone who understands teaching and coaching and how great coaches think and operate. If any of you got any questions, feel free to jump in at any time. But I'll give you something else along this line that I think that should help, and that is that when I'm coaching students, what I'm looking for is how I can help them improve all the time. And I've noticed, I've watched quite a few of you guys who have sent me videos doing your teaching, and very good. Some outstanding videos, and following the G4 protocol really well. Everything from the most part, the ones I've seen, are all really well. But obviously, what they don't want from me is just full of praise. If I come back as a coach and say, hey, that's great, this is great, fantastic, well done, you know, keep it up. You will look at that and you might feel good, your ego might feel good about it, but you're going, how's it going to help me? I'm already, there's nothing here of value to me. If Dave's giving me a report telling me I'm perfect, what about the 10 students a month I'm losing? How can I improve? How can I stop that if I'm getting a perfect score here? So that's what you, as a coach, you want from me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want some advice on what you can do to improve your game. And it's the same, again, I'll come back to Satriani. He's not going to pay you $500 for a session on coaching if you can't give him any advice. He doesn't want to hear you say, yeah, Joe, you're the man. Man, everything you do is just awesome. As much as he might like that, it's not going to help him. He's going to walk away and go, well, thank you very much, but I just wasted $500. So I could have got a fan to do it for free. So so coming back to what I am noticing in these videos, so let me give you a couple of the things that are really standing out for me that generally across the board is missing with most the teachers that I've been looking at. With all their good points, I'm just going to add a few things that you might want to be aware of. And the first thing, the most prominent thing that stands out for me is positive corrections. There's not enough positive corrections. In some cases, I saw no positive corrections. And if you're not sure what a positive correction is, you can look it up on the playbook. But to clarify basically what it is, it's when you say to somebody in a positive way something that they need to do a little bit differently or to improve on. In other words, sit up a little bit straighter. Put your guitar in the classical position. Make sure, just move your finger a little bit, sitting a little bit back on those frets. As you change the chord, it's a little bit, you're missing the frets. You're kind of landing here and then sliding here. So all these little details, and you can constantly detail your players. I saw a, while we're on Satriani, let me touch on it, because he was a teacher for a long time, and he was a great teacher at that. And anyway, and his mother is a teacher as well, school teacher, I think. And so that's why he comes from kind of a history of teaching. But he had this guy who won some competition. I don't know if any of you guys seen that video, but has anyone seen the video where the guy playing Satch Boogie? Put your hand up if you've seen it. Anyway, he gets this guy who wins this competition where he gets to have a lesson with Satriani. And what he does is he plays Satch Boogie. And perfect. If you watch it, you go, wow. Close my eyes, and I'm sure that's Joe playing. And the guy was a bit nervous as well, and you know, maybe a few little things there that weren't spot on, but it was great. And when I was thinking, well, what's Joe going to say? How's he going to help this guy? And basically, what Joe went into is he said that was great. You know, really enjoyed it. Obviously, you've really done your homework on this, and it was really interesting hearing myself, you know, coming through you and blah blah blah. But then he went on to say that, you know, you're not swinging it enough. You need to really kind of get back on the swing there, because it's a little bit too straight ahead. So just bring it back a touch, you know. And he was talking about how his drummer, you know, really pulls that back, so it's really got that boogie feel. And that was really interesting, because he got right into a certain aspect that this particular player was not really that aware of, because this guy's a rock player playing some boogie, and he just wasn't giving it the boogie feel that Satch knew it should have. And yeah, it was really interesting. And if you start to look at your students and think about what corrections are you giving them, and are you regularly doing it? Are you regularly giving them corrections? So, for instance, I watched one particular video, and the teacher, throughout the whole video, very positive, very good, did a great job. But he kept saying, "Great guys, that was really good, excellent. Okay, we're going to play the scale now. Everyone's C scale, so we're going to start off really slow. And okay, here we go. C, D, E." And you go through it, and you go through the scale a couple of times, and then you go, "Fantastic, that was great, guys, excellent. Okay, so let's move on. Now we're going to do chords. All right, so we're going to play the C chord, followed by the G chord, and then D chord. Okay, everyone good with those chords? Great. All right, let's do it." So it could have been a video. That's the problem, is that he wasn't actually saying, hey Monty, your fingers there, but if you can get a little bit more arching in them, then it's not going to sit down on the string below so much. You're not going to get that buzzing. Okay, so just do that for me. Great. Just work on that if you can. Joachim, what I want you to do is just sit up a little bit for me, just a little bit straighter. If you can get a little bit more angle in your guitar, you'll get less wrist bend. Great, excellent. And keep doing that, keep correcting them, because then the value of their lesson with you becomes obvious. Where if you're giving them just something, anything that could be done on a video, can be done on a video. It doesn't need you there. So if you can think about it from that aspect, I think Ben mentioned, Ben Gunn mentioned something about how his students wanted that personal touch of him writing things down. I get that. I get that they want something personal. It's not the writing down that matters. It's the fact that he is treating them personally, that they feel that they're getting something of value from him personally. So you don't need to write things down. What you do need to do, though, is make those connections with each of your students. So even though you teach in group, and you do address them as a group for, say, 80% of the time, 20% of the time, you want to make sure you go around the group and bring them into what you're doing. And this is the power of group teaching. This is where you're really going to become a strong group teacher, when you've got that combination of personal connections with the overall group teaching. Does that all make sense? We're all good on that? Yep.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Let me just go around. Well, actually, I'll go to Adam first. Adam, in your group teaching, how do you do it? What's a tip that you could offer?
And can you be more specific?
Yeah. So, what is it about your students that keeps them coming back each week? Why do they keep coming back? How do you make a personal connection with each of your students?
Be more specific. Be a little more. It's like really broad.
What would you do? Okay, let me give you an easy one. So, if a student is, if you've got a group of students, when you address them, when you say you're teaching them a particular skill, are you doing what I'm talking about there? Do you go around and correct each one of them and give them positive corrections?
I do. That's like my whole lesson is positive corrections, basically.
Fantastic, excellent. Okay, and that's why. Yeah, sorry.
I have an idea. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. Now I understand what you're asking. So, like for example, say we're working on scales, and say I have a group of 4. What I'll do is, let's just say the C scale, for example. I'll have 3 people playing the C chord, like strumming the C chord. I'll have the metronome going. And then that way I'm keeping them engaged, and then I'm staring at this one person playing the C major scale. And as they're playing, I'm constantly giving them positive corrections, and I'm like, okay, great. You go back to the C chord. Now I'm staring at this other person playing the C scale. He's still engaged because he's playing the chord. Everyone's playing a chord. Now I'm staring at giving him and then so forth. That way everyone was engaged the entire time, but it gave me the time to give the corrections constantly.
Fantastic. So. Excellent. So that's a perfect example, and it's really about and I'm kind of using Adam as an example just because I know that he's retaining his students, his numbers are growing, and that means overall he must be doing certain things correct. And this, I would have to say that this positive correction will be one of the biggest parts of your teaching. It will probably reduce your dropouts. If you're having a lot of dropouts, it'll reduce your dropouts dramatically because it's the one difference between the private experience and the group experience. So when people come from private lessons to group lessons, the one thing that they sometimes feel is missing is that personal touch, that care factor. And by using these positive corrections, then you bring in the care factor. Everybody feels important. Another thing that I noticed with a couple of the teachers is they weren't using names. So you notice throughout when I address each one of you, if I say Monty or I say Adam, Chris, Joachim, Michael, I'm addressing each one of you quite often. Within this, if you go back and listen to any recording where I'm working with you guys, you'll hear me probably use your names 20 or 30 times throughout an hour in a recording. And I was watching like I said, some of the teachers, and this was common, where they weren't using the students' names at all throughout the whole lesson. So this makes a student feel like they're not important. That if you don't even use my name or you don't even know my name, it's the classic thing of if you don't make that connection early, and then I think there's a funny episode, a comedy, a sitcom, where the guy keeps using the wrong name because he didn't get the right name in the beginning, but he's too afraid later to tell him what his real name is, and so you can end up in awkward situations if you don't establish this very early and very clearly. So it helps not just from the sake of making people feel personal. It just helps for you to establish names early by using people's names. So in every group, and I know when you get to 100 students, it's going to get a bit harder to remember the names, but that's where your computer comes in. Just look up the names if you've forgotten. But you should work. Generally, if you kind of have people's names, and also, my little trick was to have obviously their name on the folder. So if I forgot, I would grab their folder and say, "Can I just grab your folder for a minute? I just want to check your practice log." And then I could see their name. Thanks, thanks, Monty. There you go. So whatever it takes, but use their names. Get their names involved in the process. The other thing that I just hang on one second. I just want to look this up because there were a couple of other good points which I'll before we wrap up. Where are we here? And I think I showed you guys, and that was okay. So the big one, and if you tackle this one, and you include this one, I think all your problems are going to be over. I really think 99% of your problems will be done. And so the other big one is connecting the skills to songs. Again, when I've watched quite a few, and I would say that in probably 70% to 80% of the cases, I'm seeing whole lessons go by without a single reference to a song. And so there's no examples of songs. They're just saying, here's a G chord, here's a D chord, or here's an arpeggio, or here's a scale. these are all the, there's a skill. But at no point do I show you an example of this in a song, or a song that you know or like or are familiar with. So naturally the students start to become like, oh, this is pretty boring. So what? Yep. What's a scale? Who cares what a scale is? I just want to play songs. So we have to remember that even though we are trying to do the right thing by getting them the skills, if you lose touch of that, it's really the same as them just wanting to do songs all the time. You're doing skills all the time. The idea is to find that middle ground and to communicate with them on the middle ground. They want songs, you want them to learn the skills. So let's relate the two together by using examples throughout. So if those to me are the big things. If you can work on those, and if there's any video you want to watch back, I recommend watching this video because if you can tackle those particular skills, I think that your problems will be pretty much over, unless you need to work on things like just your general attitude and positive personality. I'm not saying that being a problem. I'm saying across the board, most of you guys are really good in your presentations. You're positive, you're happy, you're friendly, you've got all the right attributes. It's just these couple of things are missing. All right, any last questions? Feel free. Question time.
Oh, I just have a quick comment about the method, like the sheets you were talking about.
Yeah.
If they could be more consistent, like what I mean, for example, like the scale, like in the intro packet, and then the difference between the intro packet and the scale book, like the skill itself. You know how in the intro packet there's basically 2 or 3 different ways of looking at the same G to G scale. You know what I mean? But then they go to the scale book and it's only one way. It's almost like, I mean, it's cool because they get to learn how tablature works, but then when you go to the scale book, it's not tablature anymore. It's that unique kind of scale charts we have. And
have you got the latest scales book, Adam?
Oh, is it different?
Yeah.
How is it now? What's it like now?
It now includes diagrams, tab, and it's the file that I sent you.
Okay, well then never mind. You solved the problem.
Problem solved. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Never mind. Take it back.
We're still using the first G4 method.
No, I'm not using
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so yeah, go and yeah, check the downloads, and just I kind of advise checking every now and again, maybe every 3 months, just check in there and have a look. But it's only recent, so and
I noticed
when
like
I upload, I only just put it up. Yeah, I only just put it up. I'm talking last week. It's only been up a week. The new Scales book. So.
like the new intro book, I saw that for the rhythm, it looks like you used Sibelius this time. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it? Are you going to change the new rhythm book to be consistent with how that looks, or are you going to keep? You are? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's kind of half done already. What's been done is the Scales book. I think the arpeggios. I'll quickly tell you. Yeah, the chords book's been updated. Arpeggios, scales, the reading, and then next will be the rhythm book. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. And just so you guys know, what's happening is that once they're kind of updated, really all I'm doing is preparing them to go into level books, so that you'll have a level. So there won't be skills books; it'll be level books. It'll be like the G4 method as it is now. An update will go up today or tomorrow as well, because the one that I put there for you guys to look at, that's basically really just wanting you guys to give me comments and ideas on what you think it needed. So I've done things like, I've just taken all the comments that you guys have given me so far and tried to take them on board, such as putting in, getting it more aligned, getting just a few mistakes that were in there and so forth. So hopefully the next one will be much better. But the idea is that there it has everything that you want to give your level 1 students, so that you don't need to go to the skills books and print out stuff off those. You've just got it all together. And then we create a level 2 skills book, and that way you then go, okay, you're level 2 now, here's level 2 skills book, and you just print it all out or give it to them in their folder as a packet. Yeah.
That's
Any idea
phenomenal.
when that's all done?
What's that?
Do you have any idea when that'll all be done? All the skill books?
Not really. It's this. I've got a lot on the burner at the moment, so it's a matter of of finding the time to fit it all in. Yeah.
What's you said level book and a skill book? What's the difference?
Okay, so at the moment we've got, say, a chord book where it's got all the chords. But if we look at kind of how it's evolving, it started off that we had a book called the chord book, and in the chord book we had just all the chords in there, and that was it. It was just all bunched together, no particular order, and that was really out of a request. Went to check, can we have a chord book? All right, I'll put something together quickly, and that's what came about. And then the next step was, okay, well now let's put it into levels. So we've got level 1 chords, level 2 chords, level 3 chords, but we actually sorted out all the checklists, which was kind of earlier this year. Got all the checklists looking how we want them, and that was really what I wanted to get to, is where we can get the checklists right first, because as we remember, the first checklist on S1 was a bit hard, and then we made some extra checklists, so we spread it out over 5 instead of 3. Making it a bit easier, especially on the first level. So now we're kind of clear on the checklist. We know what we want on the checklist. That's all done. And so then it was a matter of, okay, let's work on the skills books. And so with the chord book, all the chords were there, but then next step was to turn the chord book into levels. So each level is on one sheet, or 2 sheets if it needed to be. So the next stage now is to put everything together. So to take out, say, from the chord book, level 1 chords, take that page and move it into a level 1 book. So everything is together for level 1. So you don't have to go to those skills books to sort of mix and match. So it's now just going to be one PDF. And this is, once the G4 method is done, which will be this week for sure, that'll be your level 1. So you can just print that off, give it to all your students, all your new students, and that's the level 1. Once they've completed level 1 and get the certificate, then you can print out a level 2, which is what I'll be making next, once I get level 1 completed, and then you'll give them that. So there'll be no kind of skills books eventually. It'll just be level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask one?
Yes, Michael.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. just with what you were saying earlier today, I'm sort of thinking that I'm wondering, like all these new resources that we have, you know, is it really, you know, like you didn't really have the core book when you were teaching the G4 method. All you really had was the intro folder. Is it possible that we're getting a little bit too concerned, as you say, with having all of these sheets and giving them all the resources? Should the students actually be memorizing this stuff before we even give them the sheets so that they can use it as a reference if they forget, rather than having to look at the sheet and work it out every time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Look, I was really strong on getting students to memorize things, to walk out of each class knowing what they had to do. I didn't want a student walking out, getting home and going, "What is a C? How do I play a C chord again?" I wanted to sort of really get them to know. So that was my approach. I was really, because I look at guitar learning as a long-term thing. I think if I look at a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old or even an adult, it's like this is a life choice. You're not going to pick up guitar for 6 months, learn it, and then move on. You're going to learn guitar for the rest of your life. So let's just take some time, and I can give you 3 chords. I'd say to students, I can give you 3 chords that you'll be able to play thousands of songs with. So let's just take our time and learn these 3 chords really well. Once we've got those 3 chords and a few basic rhythms, you can play so many songs. And I think when one of the beauties of good teaching is making things seem simple. Not easy, and there's a distinction here, but simple. Keeping things very clear and very simple. And you know, when I see you know, teachers wanting to talk about modes or you know, different concepts, it's like, these are beginner students. Let's be very careful. It's nice for you to sort of to show what you know and to want to sort of talk about these things, especially amongst your peers. But when we're talking about some beginner student walking in the door, not knowing what this thing is, not knowing any of the notes on the fretboard or what to put their fingers or how to sit or anything, it can be quite overwhelming when you're trying to give them too much information. So yeah. That's my approach, Michael. And even when I would give them the folder, I was very mindful of them not thinking that they have to learn all this in in the next few weeks. I would say, this is our reference folder. This is something that, don't you worry about it. All I want you to do this week 1, just walk away, picking down, up on one string. And this is another thing that I see in a lot of videos, is where the teachers are going through every picking exercise. In some cases, the 20 picking exercises in one lesson.
Whoa.
Not necessary, guys. It's way too much. Just give them the first picking exercise. That's all you need to do, the first lesson. And then, you know, add a little bit and say, well, here's a menu of different picking exercises. These 20 picking exercises, if you can do all 20 of these, you'll be a legend. But you don't need to do them. That's my point. It's just, these are for later. Right now, I just want you to pick down, up on one string, because it's all about the technique. It's not about the different exercises. It's just about how to hold the pick and get used to it. And the other thing is a 1-finger chord. Give them a simple 1-finger chord. That way they're getting the technique of the left hand, the technique in the right hand. They're getting an introduction to both, not having to think about too many things. Where do all these fingers go? You just got to remember 1 finger. That's all I need you to do.
Yeah. So really, when they start out, all they really need is the well, not even the checklist initially, but the practice log, ultimate song list, schedule, and the daily practice sheet. You know, with the skills listed. Today we're just going to talk about picking chords. Obviously, when you get reading, they need to actually read something, but all of the other skills really can just be taught orally. You know, yeah.
Yep. Pretty much. Yeah. You can get away with it, because if you go back to when I started this, I really had nothing at all. I didn't even have 7 skills. I had 5, and I had a practice log. I had no checklist. I didn't even have a checklist in the beginning. The checklist came a little bit later, not long after, maybe a couple of months. But I realised that I need something, and so yeah, so it was me, but always taking the philosophies that I come from. One is the E-Myth philosophy of creating simple systems, and the second one is the kind of the Steve Jobs approach of make everything simple, simple, simple. And he said, you know, it was his idea to have one button, you know, on an iPhone. You know, like here on my iPod, right, one button. That was a Steve Jobs concept. I just want one button. And people said, no, you can't do it. And that's what forced them into, you know, working out the screen display, getting the touch screen working, because he had this idea. So everything, and his success very much is about making things simple for the end user, and that's what we have to think about. We have to think about the end user, which is the student, and how to keep things simple for them and not overcomplicating them. And yes, we want to give them lots of information, but we don't want to overwhelm them. We want to keep it so that they can walk away each lesson feeling very clear about what they need to do, doing something simple for a week, come back, and then add a little bit more to it, build on top of that, come back the next week, build on top of that, build on top of that. And it's called, there's actually a term for it, I'm just trying to remember, it'll lose me, but it's building on platforms. Things build on platforms. And it's very well known in the computer industry. Where we are now, if you want to look at the different platforms, we're using a Google Hangout, a video thing, which is built on the platform of the internet. And the internet is built on a platform of, you know, coding, which is, you know, built on another platform, etc. So each thing is built on a platform, and the way that people get very good at things, become, you know, masters, and this is covered in Robert Greene's book on mastery. It's about building on platforms. Malcolm Gladwell goes into this a lot as well, where each time what they're doing is they're building on top of the skills that they have already put in place. And one of the things about mastery that you can see is that great masters build a level at a time. And the classic, which we all know, and it's such a cliche these days, but, you know, the wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. It's building a basic skill to build on top of. Okay, so it didn't give him all these different moves of how to be a karate champion, and I really implore anyone who doesn't get what we're doing to watch Karate Kid, because that says it all. Start with the very basics. Don't overwhelm your students with lots of things to do and lots of information and fancy words and, you know, jargon that they just don't get. That's where we have to be careful as teachers. We can easily talk about all these things, but students will just get overwhelmed by it. All make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking ahead to you know, pretty soon, hopefully sort of early next year, where I want to get to the stage where, yeah, we don't have the folders, and I just have a screen if I need it to put up material. So basically, students will only need a workbook with those you know, documents, the practice log, probably the checklists, so they can tick things off as they go. But yeah, ideally they come in with their guitars and we look at a screen and we just play. You know, that's sort of what I want to get to, that stage where we're not sort of flicking through folders trying to find the right page and the right book and all that kind of stuff, and where I can just email them the documents. I don't even have to print stuff out. You know, here's, you want to look up more on chords, I'll send you a chords book, or, you know, the level 2 chords book, whatever it is. So that, I think when we get to that stage, it's going to be a lot more efficient during the lessons too.
Look, on those printing costs.
Yeah, exactly. Look, the music stands, what do they cost? $20 or $30 each, and, you know, you've got to every year. You know, I know in my case that, you know, I had to buy at least 10 of them to sort of. So you times that's the big screen TV. Why not just buy a big screen TV, get rid of your music stands, and then have everything up on there? It's very easy. It's not a difficult thing. And Michael, if you want to do that, I'd love to sort of work with you on that to get it, create a thing so you can easily find, because that way they're not looking at different sheets. You know, they're all looking at the same thing, whatever you've got up on the screen. The music stands go out of the way, so you've got more room there. You can see the students more easily. You can connect with them more. You don't have this barrier between you and them. So yeah, I think we want to get there and get there quickly, because it's where the world's moving, and if we don't move with it, we're gonna end up becoming like, you know, dinosaurs pretty quickly. So I think the sooner we can get to that screen and get that happening, the better. I've got to go, but yeah, great session, guys. I always know they're good when I hang around longer. Right, so hopefully, yeah, if you guys can make it next week. Also, I've got a session on Friday as well. So.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
See you next
Guys.
week.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
See you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Night, night.